Welcome to the Pregnancy Help Podcast. I'm Christine Grimmett. I'm here with Heartbeat International's Vice President of Ministry Services, Tracie Shellhouse, and we're joined by Toby DeBause, President of Crisis Pregnancy Centers of Tidewater. And Toby has an amazing story of growth and expansion at his organization, so he'll be sharing with us about that today and how all of that played out. And as organizations experience growth, they may be looking for ways to manage that increase in clients in a way that serves the technology-driven clients of today. Next Level Center Management Solution is there to meet your needs. Next Level is a tablet-based, mobile-centric software designed to close the loop from receptionist to client to advocate and nurse, all in real time. From intake forms to telecare to appointment management, Next Level's multilingual platform is there to keep you connected. Visit nextlevelcms.com for more information or click on the link in the show notes. Thank you, Toby and Tracie. It's so great to have you with us. And Tracie, I'll turn things over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Christine. And Toby, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I know that this is a busy time of the year for you, and yet you've carved out the time. This podcast, the idea for it was really birthed out of a conversation that you and I had back in December, as you reached out to just share some amazing things that the Lord was doing there at Tidewater through just you being faithful and looking to see where the Lord's working. But to get started with that story, I would love for you to share a bit about your background in the pregnancy help movement and what brought you in and what's kept you there all these years.
Well, my beautiful wife, Karen, brought me into it. I met her at a Stephen Curtis Chapman concert, and we met and married in 9 months. And, you know, because time's the killer of all deals, Tracie and Christine, I had to move. I had to move quick. I didn't want to lose her. I didn't want her to think about it too much. But in the time that we were dating, she was a volunteer at a pregnancy center about 2 hours north of where I live. I went there for the concert. And anyway, so it was the first introduction for me to pregnancy center ministry. She was a volunteer advocate. They called her peer counselor back in the day. She's a volunteer advocate. And as soon as Karen shared that with me, I thought, wow, that is the Christ-like response to this issue. As a young believer, I was very frustrated because I didn't know what to do about it. I hated the injustice of abortion. And, you know, so there were so many areas I would try to lean into, but with, I was just a young guy. I didn't understand it all. I knew to try to talk my friends out of it in college who were having abortions, and but when Karen introduced it to me, I thought, wow, I mean, that's a no-brainer. So when we got married, we immediately started volunteering in our region where we are. And so we volunteered for 5 years. And then the founder of the ministry asked me to come on as their executive director. And I was in business for myself. I came out of college into coffee. I was selling espresso before there was a Starbucks in the area. And I was looking at another coffee business back where Karen used to live. But I have to tell you, Tracie and Christine, I didn't wrestle with the decision at all. I just thought my heart was dedicated to this. And so we did not move in that direction. We stayed in our region, and I came on board as executive director. And now I've been there. I'm their president. I've been there 25 years.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, it's funny that your background is in coffee because I definitely believe in the pregnancy help ministry. It's often fueled by caffeine.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a big part of our culture. Do you have a high standard for the kind of caffeine and coffee you consume at your center, or are you like the rest of us just doing your best with drip?
Well, I'm a pour over guy, so okay. I'm drinking my pour over all day long, and I like beans from a lot of places.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and coffee does play a huge role in our present culture, and we know the importance of culture in the pregnancy center. And as you and I have talked, that's something that we've discussed often, is the importance of having a healthy culture and everybody understanding where you've been and where you're going. So would you mind sharing a little bit about the culture of your center? What does that positive culture look like? And maybe throughout the years, a little bit of how maybe you shifted or engaged in order to make sure you're where the Lord's called you to be for this season?
Yeah, great question. A lot of times you can identify your culture through your core values. And for us, I mean, we've been around. Our founder started the ministry back in '84, Janet Kime, and which, by the way, we're corporately called Crisis Pregnancy Center of Tidewater, but we do ministry. Our clinics are called the Kime Centers, named after our founder, Janet Kime, and her last name means springing or sprouting to life in German, and in Hebrew, which came before German. I don't know if you knew that, but it was a big lesson for me. In Hebrew, it's L'chaim, means life. So the Kime Centers, they're, the women that visit us know them as the Kime Centers, but they're the life centers, and they find life there. And in this ministry, your culture can be identified by your core values. And in all the years of ministry, we didn't until recently identify our core values. And when you identify your core values, they shouldn't be like aspirational, what you hope you're going to be one day. So our exercise is really just thinking about, like, who are we? Like, what is our culture? And I could go through the list. I'm not. But one specific item on the core values list would be, in our clinics, be there when she will come. That is a core value for us. Like, we are so committed to being there when she will come. We're driven by data. We keep an eye on the data. If it's worth doing, it's worth measuring. And so several years ago, we were pulling some statistics from our call center. And what we noticed, and it was glaring, if a woman called us, let's say on a Monday, she called us on a Monday, and we were able to book her that Monday. Well, if we could book her the same day, 70% of the time she would show. If we would book her the next day, say that Tuesday, that dropped to a 50-50 situation. So that is so significant. I mean, when we got a hold of that stat, we were like, everything is going to have to change. I mean, I don't know in that immediate moment we knew that, but it was just around a few days. It was like, whereas we're thinking on this and talking about this, it's like, we've got to shift. We've got to be there when she will come. I tell the staff, especially the clinic staff, we compare them to firemen, and a fireman, they're in the firehouse, right? And sometimes, there's not a fire every other hour. And so maybe they're sitting around a little bit. But the point is, when the crisis happens and the bell rings, they go into action. And so for our folks, it's like we have a fireman's mentality. Like, we want to be there when she will come. And even if that means, at some odd hours that maybe others wouldn't be there, we want to be there. So I don't know how much you want me to go to this now, Tracie, but we shifted everything to accommodate same day service. I mean, that, and it took us several years because culture, and it was a major shift for us. So it took us several years, and I can talk about it as much as you want, but it was a major shift for us to go into same day service.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I want to go, because I love hearing about your emphasis and understanding that speed to care, speed to service makes a difference. And it's so important that, again, recognizing that the Lord is working. She did reach out and connect. She is looking for, help and services, but being able to meet her where she's at and to be there when she will come. And we know that sometimes, brick and mortar, 9 to 5 hours aren't always when she will come. And so with that, I would love to hear a little bit, as I know that you talked about, if you could book them, if they called on Monday, you could book them on Monday, 70% chance they're coming through. So I know that you were looking at your statistics, and I love what you mentioned about measuring, because I do believe that what gets measured gets done.
Right.
But often we have to look at the measurements to start with to decide what are we going to do. And I know that you've shared with me how your center did that, and then you use that information to identify what needed to grow or where you needed to expand. So I would love to just hear a little bit about that process. And then as you identified what the opportunities were, how that played out, how that affected your services at your centers.
Our operations completely changed. So, for instance, you would do, if you're trying to provide same day service, you would instinctively do things like this: provide more hours, right? So we opened earlier, we opened later. We're in 8 o'clock closing time, but they're not getting out of there till 9 or 9:30 sometimes. And so you extend your hours. We increased our facilities. So we opened up, say, in one of our major locations, we opened up an additional exam room so we could have more appointment slots. We put another clinic into place just to have more appointment slots. We Goodness, it was so many things. Our call center, we have a call center, a team that works there in the call center. And because if she's going to come, you got to answer the phone. And so we went from 6 days a week in our call center to now we're 7 days a week in our call center. And that is a phenomenal team there. So what I love about my team is, and this is important, especially if you're trying to impact culture and effectiveness in your clinic, like your folks have to have access to the data too, because if it's just top down, it's collaborative in our group. And so, for instance, the call center team really just started looking at their hours, and they realized if we could just open an hour earlier and close an hour later, it was a significant number of more women that we could reach and talk to. So our call center is open from 7 o'clock in the morning, fully manned 7 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. And in those off hours, we have strategies and stuff to still be able to set those appointments in the morning the next day. The team is very successful at what they're doing. They're constantly improving. And so with all of that, when you make all those changes, when you add all those appointment slots, when you increase your call center hours, when you do all of that, you've got to make an investment in your infrastructure with people.
Yes.
And so for us, we pretty much doubled our staff in the last 3 to 4 years. And so, we had to increase obviously more call center people, more advocates to do the work. We relied very heavily on our advocates, more medical professionals in our clinics. And so that was quite a challenge. We're up to like 75 staff members right now, and we have 10 slots available that we're still trying to fill. And that was a big jump for us.
Yeah, that's huge. And so the manpower of administration and being there, but there's also with expansion of your hours and your facilities and your people, there also comes the financial implications of
Oh,
what
yeah.
does it take in order to be able to sustain that, because you're not doing it for a short period of time. You're looking at that this becomes your baseline moving forward.
Yep.
So if you don't mind, just share a little bit about what that progression looked like for you, and then ultimately what it meant for you as far as having, I guess, I don't want to say up the fundraising game, but maybe the funding
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doubling your staff in 2 to 3 years, it's it's a significant leap. I mean, that's the biggest number on the budget. And we absolutely have had to add staff in our fundraising department and work on our procedures and our strategy there and fundraising. And it has certainly grown significantly. I mean, I talked to a lot of pregnancy centers, and it seems post-COVID, a lot of pregnancy centers saw a surge actually in giving, where a lot of folks were concerned about losing funds. But we needed a very significant surge to cover that kind of growth. And to be honest with you, Tracie, we're getting a little bit ahead of our skis now. It's tight. We came in, I would say in my 25 years, and my first 2 years were terrible. I mean, it was me and an office manager. 2 people had quit. One was fired. That was before I came on. So it was me and an office manager. And then quickly we hired 2. And those were tough days. But I would say last year was my hardest year of ministry in my 25 years on staff, and just the lift it takes to keep this momentum going, and even in the expansion of services, expansion of advertising. I mean, the abortion pill providers, they are so competitive. I mean, they're just lined up around our region. I'm in the Virginia Beach area, and there are just so many abortion pill providers targeted in our area. And in Virginia specifically, there's a new group that's come on, and they work in 2 states. They only target 2 states, New Mexico, and late last year they started targeting Virginia, and they offer discounted abortion pills. So where it typically costs The women we served anywhere between $350 and as much as $500 to get those pills. This group claims that they can provide it for as low as $90. And the reason why they do this is because they're a nonprofit. They take donations. And you're going to think this is outlandish, but it's true. This nonprofit is recognized by the IRS as a church. And the name of this church is called the Satanic Temple. And so they are targeting our region, our women in Virginia and here in our community to sell those abortion pills. It is horrible. So the increase in competition, that drives cost up as well. We spend on average about $14,000 a month just with Google. That's not all our marketing efforts, but just writing the check to Google, it's $14,000 a month. And
Wow.
but not only do we need to be there when she will come, we got to win that moment online, because if she chooses those other ads, that's death. We know this. For us, it's life, and it's so critical that we win that moment. So
Right.
it's probably a mantra around our ministry as well.
Well, and it's interesting because what I hear you saying is, through looking at your statistics, through your team coming together and looking at effectiveness, you recognize new opportunities. You recognize that you could increase impact, that you had the opportunity through speed to care and being there when she will come, that more lives could be touched and more lives could be saved. And yet, at the same time, that affects culture, because you have to have buy-in from your entire team. Because as we expand, growth is uncomfortable. There's always growing pains with that. And then there's also the funding aspect of it, and then how that affects your team too. And so I think it's interesting when I hear, you know that you're where the Lord has called you and you've stepped into that space, and yet it's been a hard year. And so how does that, as far as the culture, so you've got a team that recognize with you, we can expand hours. If we can just do an hour earlier and an hour later on the call center, we can get to more women. How do you manage that within the culture as you're recognizing and stepping into spaces that also do come with growing pains? How does that affect your team overall? Do you see people leaning in and they're excited but praying harder? Do you see people sometimes getting discouraged? How do you lead in that culture?
Yeah, I mean, you got a couple of things there. Well, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And though you can have the best statistics and so forth and the best laid plans out there, you're not doing this alone. And that's the beautiful thing. You're not doing this alone. We're better together. I mean, that's just the blueprint in scripture, from Ecclesiastes 4 to Ephesians chapter 4, verses 15 and 16. We're just better together. So that's a good thing. But the other side of it is, I can say, hey, we're gonna take that mountain on, right? But I need these folks to come with me. And we have a remarkable team. But I have to tell you, years ago when we started this process, you're talking change, significant, radical change. And the truth is, in every organization, people do not like change. And so as you're going, the truth is, it does, there's a lot of bumps in the road. And, first of all, we got to consider one another better than ourselves, right? So you got to be very thoughtful of the people around you. But here's the thing, Tracie, and so saying all that and how much we value people, I hope this balances out the statement I'm getting ready to make, which is, in the change, in the direction you're going, some people really don't want to go there. And that's okay. Like, we have seasons. I mean, I've been here 25 years, but my season will end one day. I don't know why it will end or when it will end. And I always thought it was going to end much shorter than what it's been. I never would have thought it's go this long. But, seasons end. And so for some folks, they have to make that decision that, that their season's over. And sometimes in leadership, you got to make the decision for them, and that's hard. But you have to honor the Lord in all these things. And, I'm not saying we did it perfectly, but that was obviously rocky and hard. And that is the way it is when you deal with culture and you deal with change.
Yeah. And it's interesting how the seasons play out too. I know that with the organization that I was with before I joined Heartbeat, we went through some major changes.
Uh,
We started focusing much more on intervention services.
mhm.
We continued all of our support services, our parenting classes, our material aid, and so forth, but really, really began to emphasize getting to that client in that crux, in that moment of decision. And with that, it did change the culture. And there were those that believed that was the direction we were supposed to be going, but their season had looked different, and they were like, I think my season's coming to an end. But one of the
Mhm.
wonderful things that I loved about that is they still believed in the mission,
Yep.
and still were
Absolutely.
able to remain involved. And I had some that transitioned out for a period of time, and then the Lord brought them back in. But I do think that's an important thing, is to be able to also recognize within what God is doing there, how is He calling us to respond? And that can be, that can be a big question for a lot of people, and sometimes it's a hard thing to work through. But it is within your organization. It can also sometimes be hard to lead through too, because as we're wanting to keep everyone encouraged, and also to be able to bless and release well when that's the season and the time, and also to encourage and empower when maybe it's like, no, you know, just dig in. We're good. We're taking some ground. And when you're climbing that mountain, like you mentioned, you can see that mountain and that's where you're supposed to be, but you're not going along. We're all climbing together, and I think everyone feels the effect of it a bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And though, what impacts the culture though as you go, of course you got the change, but when you see results from the change, that gets everybody very excited.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so and that's what we've seen. I mean, we've just seen steady growth. And I mean, we could reach probably 5 times more, legitimately 5 times more than women we're seeing. But we're really trying to reach the ones that are hard to reach. Like, we're trying to reach the women.
Mm.
27% of the women we serve have already made up their mind to have the abortion before they walk in our door. 31% are truly undecided. And what we've learned since post COVID and post Roe being overturned, like they lean more towards abortion. They do life in those undecided situations. We have about 18% that we assess at risk. You got those who, you got the determined, I made up my mind, the undecided, I really don't know what I'm going to do, abortion's on the table. But then you got those who would love to carry, but the boyfriend's pressuring her, mom and dad saying you can't come home. You got that. And so for us, it's about 18%. And then 28% of the women we see are, they say they're going to carry, and we believe them. Of course, that goes the other way sometimes, but it's rare. So what I'm saying is, we're reaching the woman we want to reach, which is, though we love serving the carry to term woman, we're so focused on reaching that undecided, the determined, and those who are being coerced, and so we're reaching them. We're
Right.
reaching them, and
Hmm.
and and so we've seen significant increases in that, and impact and intervention in that. And we've changed. So let me say this: we saw a historic number of women last year. We've never served as many women as we served in the 40 years of ministry, which is our 40th anniversary this year. My 25th anniversary, 40th anniversary. A lot of anniversary partying going on this year in our ministry. But in the 40 years, we've never served so many women in one year as we did last year. We served 2,628 individual women.
Wow.
And those are not appointments. Those are, unique visits, unique people, individuals. And you go back, you put those percentages on it, and those percentages I give are based off about 85, 86% of those women test positive for pregnancy. So any percentages I just gave you were on positive test pregnancies.
Hmm.
And so the Lord is just moving in that, and He's allowing us to reach more and reach the hardest ones. And Tracie, I know you work with so many pregnancy centers around the country, and I know you're hearing these stories. They're coming into our waiting room, and though there's 5 different opportunities for them to know we're not an abortion facility, they're in there saying, dropping F bombs, insisting on getting the abortion pill. You know, this is a sad story. You know, the grandmother, okay, she comes with her daughter who's, and her daughter's being scanned, and grandbaby pops up there on the ultrasound machine, on the ultrasound monitor screen. And grandma's sitting in the chair beside her daughter, making the appointment at Planned Parenthood for the abortion of the grandchild that she sees up on that screen. I share that story, though it doesn't happen a lot. It's happened more than once, so it gets on my radar to talk about. It's harder. Like our culture is turning more to death, not life, and we see it across the states, and it's so sad. But as hard as it gets, you know, my team is getting in there, and we're starting to reach them, more of them, because we're providing the same day service. And now the next big thing for us is, now that we're able to provide same day service, how can we do even better at intervention once they get there? If we're going to be there when she will come, what can we do to better intervene? And so we're making big adjustments right now and all of that to better intervene now that we're reaching her. And I'm not saying we weren't trying before, but you know, it's just a big lift to do the kind of things that we're doing, and we're putting more into that as well.
Yeah, and that's great. You know, and one of the things that we had talked about is, as you've had to expand, expanded your service, you expanded your staff to be able to provide those
Right.
services. You had mentioned, I love the firehouse mentality. My uncle and my husband, the fireman, my husband in the Marine Corps, no longer,
Awesome.
but I definitely get that, because there is that space of hanging out. Sort of, you're relaxed, but you're always sitting ready to go.
Yep.
And and that kind of lifestyle can actually at times sometimes be exhausting, especially when you have a lot of fires. And as you're intentional and strategic about how you're doing your marketing, because you're wanting to get to those that are abortion minded, you're wanting to get to those that are really facing, you know, great risk. Those that are serving are often serving. You know, the hard client, they're having those hard conversations. And I know when we spoke back in December, as you had expanded your staff, you had recognized a portion of your staff that is sort of those firemen and women in there that are serving, and you knew the importance of them being available and the investment that they put into training and being better prepared to have better conversations and to serve better. And you recognized a need there.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, would you share just a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. When I'll say it again, we pretty much doubled our staff. So that price point is really big. And we did get ahead of our skis. You know, we came towards the end of the year facing a very significant deficit, which is unusual for us. The budget's always kind of scary when you start the year out, because you just don't know how God's going to move 100%, or even, do you know the mind of God? He's incomprehensible. He's awesome. And I've seen him do great, awesome things. But we don't know. We sit on the first part of the year with the budget, and it is a wing and a prayer. But as you're coming towards the end of the year, you're facing a significant deficit. That's unusual for us. And we were feeling that. You're talking the changes that we're making post-COVID. This whole country shifted, right? And one of the things that shifted is people got paid more. And so we tried to, as best as we could, no one's going to be accused at our ministry or other pregnancy center ministries being paid too much. Not in this movement. I mean,
No,
it just doesn't
no, they're
happen.
not.
Yeah, but we knew we had to increase, so we started making some marginal increases across staff, and but late last year, here we are facing this huge deficit, and I'm talking to my vice president of ministry operations, and it's like, we need to raise the pay for our advocates again. We need to do that. And we were looking at it because we've grown in such size with the advocates, and making a pay increase is a significant decision, and we wanted to bump it up a good bit. So, I'm wrestling with that number, and I'll never forget it. Like, our advocates, we have campuses spread out all over our region here in Virginia Beach, And so they can't always be together, but once a month they're together in their own meeting and working out their issues and navigating things. And I was asked to come and just pray and start the meeting off. And that morning I woke up and like it just hit me like we need to raise up their salaries. And so here I am facing, significant deficit and I'm like, this is insane. And so I wake up and I'm convicted, but I'm like, we should wait till the first of the year and see how it ends. And then I'm in my prayer time with the Lord and I'm wrestling with the Lord on this. And, it's always a journey of faith in this ministry. And if God's telling you to do something, you need to do it. You need to have faith in him. If things are lining up, and I always tell people, because, like, if he's telling you to jump over the cliff, well, you got to have enough faith to go. But you better know he's telling you to do it if you're going to jump over the cliff, right? Like, that's right. Craziness. And sometimes it's just a little craziness in how we operate. And so it didn't make sense number-wise, but I know people say that I had peace in my spirit. I had peace in my spirit. But here's the thing, and because we say these things, right, to justify our actions, and we'll say, well, I have peace, I have faith, and then I'm just going to do. But this was a buildup. And we just knew we needed to do this. Like, this was the right thing. It was the appropriate thing. And it would have been the wrong thing not to do it in our minds. And this is leadership talking it out and weighing it out.
So can I interject?
So, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is it wasn't as much a decision as you discerned the decision.
Correct.
You were being.
Yeah. You're 100% right, Tracie. It is discernment. Like I got very wordy there, but you're 100% on point. It's comes down to discernment. And for me that morning, like, we knew this was the right thing to do, and it's always the right day to do the right thing. And so, I had to step out in faith. And so I left my prayer moment, and I went to an advocacy meeting, and in that meeting, they asked me just to pray and leave, right? But I came in and I prayed, but then I made the announcement that we're going to be giving raises to all the advocates. And it was a significant amount for us. And they were certainly encouraged by that. And after I made that announcement, I head out to my car. And as I'm going to my car, I'm getting a text message from my finance officer. So, I'm just navigating to get in my car and start it. And she's like, please call me. So I'm backing up and hitting out, and I'm driving and I'm calling her. And she says, hey, we just got the grant that we applied that Heartbeat helped us to get. And we just got it. And we were expecting, like I said, like $2,500 or $3,500, which is awesome. And I was thinking in that moment, well, praise the Lord. I'm grateful. I just went in there and told them that we're going to give them a raise. And this is very affirming to get this kind of a phone call. And then she said, yeah, but it wasn't that amount. And it was significantly more than that. And Tracie, I'm not making this up. Christine, you hear a lot of things, but this is 100% true. It was the exact amount that it was going to cost us to provide those raises for the advocates. And so I'm driving down the road and I'm hearing this and I'm like, Lord, you just moved. Like, you didn't have to do this the way this is dramatic. And I'm seconds away from announcing that raise. So I turn my car around as fast as I can. And, I'm a little heavy footed anyway, but I'm coming around and I'm driving back and I interrupt the meeting again. I said, I'm so sorry I'm interrupting this meeting, but I just have to tell you, like, I just made this announcement to you that we're going to have this raise, and we're getting ahead of our skis and we're actually facing a huge deficit this year. But when I left you, like, the phone call that I made told me that the very amount that's going to cost us to give you all raises, we just got in a grant.
Wow.
Everybody started applauding. It was a remarkable moment. I'll never forget it. It was it will be a highlight in my 25 years.
when you shared that story with me back in December, one of my favorite parts about that is where you shared that when you announced that they were all getting a raise, everybody was excited. I mean,
Yep,
they were pleased, and that
they
was
were.
very affirming. But when you came back and shared that the Lord had
Yes.
miraculously met a need, it went
Yep.
from just being, you know, appreciative and affirming to
It,
praising God.
yes, they were
That room.
cheering the Lord on,
That's
like
right.
clapping, cheering.
That's right.
And, it was
Yeah.
just an amazing moment. And
Yeah.
it was just a great faith-filling moment for
Mhm.
all of us on this team. Like, our Lord is with us.
Yeah. And so the Lord met that particular need that way, but I know that you also shared that, another donor came alongside and helped make up some of the other gap, because you were, as you said, ahead of your skis, and but you were trusting that that's where the Lord's calling you, and that's a
Yeah.
safe place to be if you've discerned that. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
absolutely. That deficit we were facing, we had a donor really come out of, we weren't expecting this. He offered a very significant. We don't get gifts like this. We were facing like a $300,000 to $400,000 deficit, and this person stepped up and did a match gift, true match. Like, we had to get it matched, and the people responded. God's people responded, and we ended up with a surplus at the end of the year
Wow.
instead of a deficit. Again, only God. Like, we could not steal His glory in this moment. Like, no way. We've got an awesome fundraising team. As awesome as they are, it wasn't our great skill set that provided this. It was our God, and we're so grateful.
We always celebrate what we know the Lord is doing, and we know that He provides vision, and then He also makes provision for the places that He calls us. But we have to have the faith to step out there, because rarely when we're stepping out, do we know exactly what that path is going to look like
That's
and
right.
where it's going to lead. My husband and I often talk about it, and he mentions the scene from Indiana Jones where he's standing and there's the huge crevice, and he's got to get to the other side, and there's no way to get there, and then finally, he sort of goes through the I guess the puzzle, the problem, or whatever, but it was a leap of faith. And then when he stepped, then he landed on solid ground, and then all of a sudden the path began to make sense in front of him. Then he started to be able to like discern it a bit. But just like what you were saying, is if you're going to step over that cliff, if you're going to take that, then you need to discern that that is where the Lord's calling you.
That's right.
But then trust that He's got a plan. And what's wonderful is then we get to experience miracles like that.
That's right. And I'll say this, because we're people of faith, and we've been in this movement a long time. Sometimes you step out, and it's not prosperity; it's painful,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord has something for you in that too.
Yes.
So He's using it all. He's using it all for His glory and the good of this ministry and the good of these families that we serve. And however He does it, again, I can't even begin to scope it all out. But I will say this: I think this is worth saying real quick, Tracie. I'm just so grateful for Heartbeat, because you epitomize this, like, in talking to you, and I know it's the heartbeat of Heartbeat. You care about these pregnancy centers. You take it on the chin for us. You guys were the pathway for this provision for us, and I'm just so grateful, because you had nothing to gain from that. Nothing. We had to gain, and you guys did the work and provided that pathway. God's using His people, and I'm just so grateful. And He used Heartbeat. He used you. And so thank you, sister.
Well, it is our honor and privilege, and we love pregnancy help. We love reaching and rescuing and renewing communities for life. And the way we do it is coming together, because the mission field is so great, it is so big, and it takes all of us all together, locking arms and praying and trusting that
Yeah.
where He leads us, He's going to make provision. So, for those that are possibly looking at their statistics, maybe they're recognizing that there might be new opportunities or new places that they're discerning the Lord's calling them into something that might look a little scary, or maybe it's just new. What like encouraging words or final thoughts would you have for them as far as choosing faith, and definitely choosing faith over fear?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say, what you focus on grows. And so focus on it. And I know I've heard it, like, you're so into the numbers. Well, we have a core value where we say results matter because people matter. We're not looking at these numbers just for the pure satisfaction of numbers. Look, there's easier ways for me to pay my mortgage. There's other places to be, right? But we're here to save lives, spare hearts, and spread the gospel of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And so, how are we doing with that? You should ask. And we know, like we water, we plant the seed, and the Lord brings the harvest. Like, I get that, but you've got to look. You've got to look at your numbers. You got to have your measurements. And I hope after this podcast, the people would go, hey, maybe we should consider how we're doing with same day service. Not every woman's gonna pick same day. You might have it available to her, but she might not pick it. For us, it's 25% of our patients will say yes to coming in that day. And we just keep working on in our call center, getting that number to improve, because we know most likely she's going to show. And it's such a difference between that day and the next day. And then on the faith piece, Tracie, I think we've already put it out there. Like, if the Lord tells you to do something, you do it. Faith is so critical. One day, we won't need faith ever again. Isn't that a wild thought? Like, we won't ever need faith again. Yet on this side of eternity, our ministry, we always hang on a verse every year that we meditate on. And our verse for this year was John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus then says, but I've come to have life and have to the full. And our parents looking for the good life, but we want them to have the full life. We don't just want life for these babies. We want life for mom and dad too. And Jesus is life. He's everything. He is the full life. And in the full life, there's good gifts that Jesus gives us. One is salvation. So in that John passage, Jesus is saying, I'm the gate. He's the pathway to salvation. He also says, I'm the good shepherd. I die for my sheep. Like, not only is he the pathway to it, he's the provision for our salvation. So salvation is a good gift of Jesus. But the other good gift of Jesus is faith. He gives us faith. And that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And, faith is so critical in Scripture. Faith is how we receive the grace, right? By grace through faith are we saved. It says that without faith, it's impossible to please God. Think about that. So critical, faith. The big faith chapter of Hebrews 11, right? It's by faith that Abraham got his inheritance. By faith, Noah built the ark. And you're like, man, faith does awesome things. Like, this is so cool. And then by faith, Elijah, he escaped death. He just got to just ascend on. And you're like, faith is awesome. But then as you get to the latter part of the chapter, it's like, and by faith, these people were martyred, tortured, sawn in two. Some of them were cut in half because of their faith. And yet it's impossible to please God without it. When I first started in the ministry, one of my very first pastor meetings, the pastor said to me, Toby, son, you've got a lot to learn about faith. He was 100% right. I was so anxious and worried. And what we're facing in this movement would cause anxiety. Our state is so pro-abortion, and they're getting ready to create a constitutional amendment to just underscore it and pave the pathway to attack pregnancy centers all the more. But you hear it from New York and Illinois and California, Massachusetts and Vermont, and the work we do, like the enemy, he only comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants to eat us. So you got to have great faith to be in this to begin with. But we know, Tracie, like, you've been around this for a while. And Christine, you get to hear testimonies in these podcasts. And what we see, though, is in all this, the Lord is with us, and we can have faith, though we can't see clearly. We have faith, and the Spirit provides that for us. And as we walk that out, we see him move. And this is where I'll end. At the end of all of Job's trials, he said this. He said, before I'd only heard about God, but now I've seen God. And though one day we won't need faith again because we'll be able to see Jesus so clear.
Yeah.
But even now we get to see Jesus move. And that time where I give testimony, and that was just one of so many times where I saw God move and I couldn't steal his glory. There's no way we could. We saw him move, and that fills your faith. And if we have faith, this is why it's such a good gift from Jesus. If we have faith, we can get through anything that we're doing here.
Yes. Yeah. And my experience has been faith increases faith, because when we have faith, we experience God move, we experience the miracles.
Absolutely.
We have those testimonies
Sure.
that become our own Hebrews 11, where we're saying, and by faith, we made the choice to make a decision that even financially may not have made sense, but we had discerned
Right.
that the Lord did, and He made provision. And it reminds us that we can trust Him when we follow Him where He calls us, even if we can't see the next step ahead. We trust.
You say it so much better than me. You're right. Faith builds faith. That's what I was trying to say, but I got all preachy. But you're right, Tracie. Faith builds faith.
Well, and I think in the situation specifically to what you're talking about, when we're talking about financial, because there's all different kinds of places that the Lord calls pregnancy help to move into, and there's different pressures, and sometimes it's a financial pressure. Sometimes it's the pressure of opposition, of the words of those that oppose us, and we get to experience that a good bit with Heartbeat, and with the abortion pill reversal and those that are trying to say negative things in those spaces. But it is so important to press into that. But especially when it comes to the financial, not being, I don't want to say not disregarding the importance of it, because fiduciary responsibility is a very important responsibility for the board and the leadership. And yet at the same time, it is always important to look at the light over the ledger. If we trust that the light is where He's calling us, that as we step into that, then He will make up the needs that we have. And He can reconcile a ledger, and He can balance things in His timing and in His way. And often it's not how we expect it. And that's okay. That's one of the most wonderful things about serving the Lord, is He does a lot of unexpected things.
That's right.
All
That's
right. Okay. And with that, Christine, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Tracie. Thank you, Toby, for your yes, even initially, to stepping up to leading this organization, and then your continued yes as you experience so much growth. And it's a brave yes. And so if we have listeners who are feeling that pull towards what is the next step for their organization, I hope that they find this incredibly encouraging, just as I have. I know Tracie has, and we love to hear stories like yours. So if you're listening to this and this has been really encouraging for you and you would like to share it with someone else, please do. This growth is kind of contagious if you think about stepping out in faith and what the amazing work that God can do through those that say yes to Him. So again, share this episode, subscribe to the podcast so that we can keep more encouragement, more learning and training related to pregnancy help coming your way. And thanks for listening to this episode of the Pregnancy Help Podcast.